Welcome to today's audiobook reading of Forever Starts with Goodbye, a heartfelt second-chance romance from the Harbor's End series. This is a story about Ava Reynolds and Liam Carter, two hearts separated by time, silence, and the kind of goodbye that never truly becomes final. So, settle in, relax, and let the sound of Harbor's End carry you into a story of forgiveness, courage, lost love, and the beautiful possibility of finding your way home. This is Forever Starts with Goodbye. Chapter 1: The Long Way Home. The ferry to Harbor's End ran twice a day now, instead of 4 times. One more small erosion in a town that seemed to be dissolving quietly into the fog, and Ava Reynolds stood at the bow with her sunglasses hiding more than the glare. 5 years. She had built a life in that time, a marketing career in Boston she was good at and did not love, a condo with good light and no photographs on the walls, a version of herself that did not flinch anymore when someone mentioned high school sweethearts, or so she had thought until the plane began its descent into the small regional airport, and her whole chest had folded in on itself like a paper boat taking on water. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mother. "Don't forget the appraiser comes Thursday. Try not to fall in love with the place all over again before you sign the papers." Ava closed her eyes. Her grandmother, Eleanor Reynolds, had died in March, gently, in her sleep, in the bedroom of the inn she had run for 41 years, and had left the whole rambling, sea-battered, gorgeous wreck of a building to her only granddaughter, with a will that said, in its entirety, regarding the property, "Ta Ava, who I hope will remember that some things are worth saving, even when the smart thing to do is let them go." The Wayfarer Inn had been the heartbeat of Harbor's End since 1962, white clapboard gone silver-gray with salt, a wraparound porch that had hosted 3 generations of engagements, funerals, and 4th of July crab boils, a lighthouse view widow's walk that Ava had spent half her childhood daring herself to sleep on. It needed, by the contractor's last estimate, $400,000 of restoration it did not have. Selling it to the hotel group that had already made 2 offers would solve every practical problem Ava had. It would also mean erasing the last physical proof that her grandmother, and the girl Ava used to be, had ever existed at all. She did not let herself think about who else still lived in this town. The ferry docked. Harbor's End unfolded exactly as she remembered, and completely differently. The way home always does. The same candy-colored shopfronts along Water Street, the same gulls fighting over the same fish market scraps, but also a new coffee roaster where the hardware store used to be, and Danny Weaver's old family diner repainted a cheerful sage green. Her Aunt Carol met her at the dock, wrapping her into a hug that smelled like sunscreen and cinnamon. "You look tired, sweetheart. I look like someone who took a red-eye and is about to sell her childhood." "You don't have to sell anything yet." Carol took one of her bags. "Your grandmother would want you to at least walk through the place with open eyes before you make a decision you can't take back." The walk up from the harbor to the inn took 11 minutes. Ava had once run it in 7, barefoot, the summer she was 17, racing Liam Carter to see who could reach the porch swing first, both of them collapsing into it, laughing so hard neither of them could breathe. She pushed the memory down like a stone into deep water, and kept walking. The Wayfarer came into view at the top of the hill, the way it always had, white and weathered and slightly crooked, like an old woman who had decided decades ago that good posture was less important than good stories. Ava stood at the gate for a long moment before she let herself go in. Inside smelled like her grandmother, lavender and lemon oil and, faintly, wood smoke from the stone fireplace that hadn't been lit in months. Dust motes turned lazily in the light through the bay window. The guest register still sat open on the front desk, to the last entry Eleanor had ever taken, a Boston couple who had checked out the week before she died, and Ava had to look away from the careful, familiar loop of her grandmother's handwriting before it undid her completely. "The contractor's coming by this afternoon to walk the property," Carol said, setting Ava's bags down at the base of the stairs. "New guy, well, not new to town, but new to doing the actual work here. Very in demand, apparently. Booked out 8 months, but he moved some things around when he heard it was the Wayfarer." That was kind of him. Ava trailed her fingers along the banister, worn smooth by 40 years of hands. What's his name? Carter Restoration and Design, runs it out of Portland now, but he's local. Originally, you'd probably remember him. Actually, you two were close as kids. The front door swung open on its familiar creak, admitting a wash of salt air and afternoon light, and a voice Ava had not heard in 5 years. A voice that had once said her name, like it was the only word worth knowing, said, "Carol, sorry I'm early. The ferry schedule's a mess." Liam Carter stopped in the doorway of the Wayfarer Inn, with a set of blueprints under one arm, and stared at the woman standing at the bottom of the staircase, like the whole ocean had just walked back into his life. Neither of them said a word. Outside, a gull cried once, sharp and startled, and somewhere down the hill the ferry sounded its horn, the same low, mournful note it always made, the one that, 5 years ago, had carried Ava Reynolds away from this town, and from him, on what both of them had believed, for a very long time, was a goodbye without an ending. Chapter 2, Blueprints and Ghosts. "You," Liam said, and it was not eloquent, but it was the only word his brain seemed capable of producing. "Me." Ava's heart was doing something violent and undignified in her chest. He looked older. Of course he looked older. 5 years older, broader through the shoulders, a faint line at the corner of each eye that hadn't been there when he was 20. He looked, infuriatingly, better, like time had spent itself sanding him down into something finer. "You're the contractor. I'm the architect." A ghost of the old dry humor flickered across his face before he visibly stamped it out. "Carol didn't tell me whose place this was. Carol didn't tell me who the architect was either." Ava glanced at her aunt, who was suddenly very interested in the guest register. "I may have thought," Carol said, not making eye contact with either of them, "that it would go better as a surprise than as a warning. In hindsight, I can see the flaw in that reasoning." "Carol, I'll be in the kitchen." Carol fled with the speed of a woman who had lit a fuse and intended to be well clear of the blast radius. That left the two of them standing in the front hall of the Wayfarer Inn, 10 feet and 5 years apart, both of them too stunned to do anything but stare. "I heard about your grandmother," Liam said finally, gently, and something in Ava's chest cracked open at the sincerity in it. "I'm so sorry, Ava. Eleanor was. She was one of the best people I ever knew. She adored you." Ava's voice wavered. "Even after. She used to ask about you every time I kept telling her I didn't know anything, and she kept asking anyway, like she didn't believe me. She used to send me articles." A small, helpless laugh escaped him. "Whenever one of my projects got written up somewhere, I'd get a card in the mail. No note, usually, just the clipping, and her handwriting on a sticky note that said, 'Proud of you,' or something like it. I never knew if I was supposed to write back." "That sounds like her." Ava blinked hard against the burn in her eyes. "She never gave up on people. Not even the ones who left." The word "left" sat between them, heavier than she'd meant it to be, and she watched something shudder behind his eyes. "I should probably explain why I'm here," he said, shifting the blueprints under his arm like a shield. "Carol reached out to my firm about restoration work on the inn. Structural assessment, historic preservation filing, the whole scope. I didn't know it was." He gestured vaguely at the whole building, at her, at the entire improbable coincidence of it. "I would have said something, given you the option to hire someone else. Do you want me to hire someone else?" The question surprised them both. Ava watched it land, watched him consider it with the same careful seriousness he'd once brought to every important decision they'd made together, back when they were young enough to believe every decision was important. "No," he said finally, "I know this building. I've loved this building since I was a kid sneaking onto the Widow's Walk to watch the fireworks. I know its bones better than almost anyone alive. If you want it saved, I'm the right person to save it. A beat, but I understand if that's not something you can stomach. Working with me." Ava thought about the appraiser coming Thursday. She thought about the hotel group's second offer, sitting unanswered in her email, $400,000 of problems solved with a single signature. She thought about her grandmother's handwriting in the guest register, and the Widow's Walk, and a boy who used to draw her houses on diner placemats. "Show me the assessment," she said. "Let's see if there's anything left worth saving." If he heard the double meaning in it, and by the flicker in his eyes, she suspected he did. Neither of them acknowledged it out loud. They spent the next 2 hours walking the property together. Liam pointing out water damage along the east wall, dry rot in the porch supports, the good bones of the original 1962 construction beneath decades of well-meaning patchwork repairs. He was thorough and precise and entirely professional, and Ava found herself both grateful for it and, absurdly, a little wounded by it, as if some part of her had expected, hoped, that 5 years apart would have left the old current between them untouched, still humming under the surface the way it always had. It was still there. She felt it every time his hand brushed the small of her back to guide her around a loose floorboard, every time he caught himself starting to reach for her the way he used to, automatically, and stopped. "The widow's walk needs a full rebuild," he said, as they stood in the upstairs hallway looking up at the access ladder. "Rot's gone into the joists. It's not safe to climb right now. It never used to stop us. We were 19 and invincible." A faint smile. "I don't recommend testing that theory at 24. 25, she corrected quietly. "I turned 25 in March." Something moved across his face, the memory of a birthday he had not been there for, of 5 birthdays he had not been there for, and he looked away first. "I'll have a full written proposal to you by end of week," he said, businesslike again, retreating into the safety of professionalism, the way he used to retreat into blueprints whenever a feeling got too large to hold. Cost estimate, timeline, historic tax credit options that could offset some of the expense. "It's your call what happens next. I just want you to have real information before you decide." "Thank you." She walked him to the door. On the porch, he paused, looking back at the building the way a man looks at something he has loved for a very long time, from a distance he never chose. "For what it's worth," he said, "I hope you keep it." "Why?" "Because some things are worth saving." His eyes found hers, and for one unguarded second, the 5 years fell away entirely. "Even when the smart thing to do is let them go." He was quoting her grandmother's will without knowing it, and Ava did not have the composure left to tell him so. She simply nodded and watched him walk back down the hill toward the harbor, and stood on the porch of the Wayfarer Inn for a long time after he was gone, listening to the gulls, feeling the whole shape of her carefully rebuilt life tilt gently, irreversibly, off its axis. Chapter 3. Water Street. By her 3rd morning back, Ava had developed a system for avoiding the 2 things she least wanted to face: the appraiser's forthcoming visit, and any street in Harbor's End that Liam Carter might reasonably be expected to walk down. She failed spectacularly at the second one before 9 a.m. Ava Reynolds. The voice belonged to Nora Kim, who had run the Salt and Page bookshop on Water Street since before Ava was born and possessed, as far as Ava could tell, an almost supernatural ability to appear exactly where a person least wanted to be recognized. "Look at you, all grown up and citified." "Hi, Nora." Ava let herself be pulled into a hug that smelled like old paper and peppermint tea. "The shop looks wonderful." "The shop looks the same as it's looked since 1988, but I appreciate the flattery." Nora held her at arm's length, studying her with the frank, affectionate scrutiny of a woman who had watched half the town grow up. "I hear you're selling your grandmother's inn to some hotel chain." "I'm considering my options." Nora's eyebrows conveyed volumes. "I also hear a certain architect is doing the assessment." "Small town, dear. News travels faster than the ferry." "It's a professional relationship." "Of course it is." Nora patted her cheek with the particular tenderness of someone who had clearly decided not to say the 10 other things she was thinking. "Come in for coffee. I have a new shipment of paperbacks and gossip, and I suspect you could use both." Ava went in, mostly because refusing Nora Kim had never once worked for anyone in the history of Harbor's End. The shop was warm and cluttered, and exactly as she remembered, shelves crowded floor to ceiling, a reading nook by the window, where she and Liam used to hide from the rain and split a single overpriced hot chocolate, because neither of them had money, and both of them had wanted an excuse to sit that close together. "He's different, you know," Nora said, setting 2 chipped mugs on the counter, without being asked what Ava wanted. "Liam, not different, same good heart, but quieter." He came back from architecture school for his father's funeral 3 years ago and never quite left again, not really, even after he moved his firm's home base to Portland. Comes back most weekends. Restored the old Cutter place on the Point himself. Did you know that? Lives there alone. Big house for one person. Nora, I'm just talking about real estate, dear. The old woman's eyes twinkled with a total absence of innocence. He never brought anyone else around, in 5 years, not once. People notice things like that, in a town this size. Ava wrapped both hands around her mug and said nothing, because there was nothing safe to say, because some part of her chest had gone tight and hopeful and furious with itself all at once. I'm not here to fall back into anything, she said finally. I'm here to settle an estate. Of course you are. Nora smiled the smile of a woman who had heard that particular sentence 1,000 times in 50 years of running a bookshop in a town built on second chances, and had learned, long ago, exactly how much weight it was capable of holding. Buy a book, dear. On the house, something with a happy ending. I think you're due. Ava left 20 minutes later, with a battered paperback she didn't remember choosing, and a heart considerably less settled than when she'd walked in, and nearly collided, at the corner of Water Street and Harbor Lane, with Liam Carter coming out of the hardware store, carrying a roll of blueprints and a coffee that he nearly dropped in his effort not to spill it on her. We have to stop meeting like this, he said, and it was so unexpectedly, achingly familiar. An old joke, one they'd made 100 times as teenagers, always running into each other, always finding excuses to. That Ava laughed before she could stop herself, a real laugh, surprised out of her. This town has 4 streets, Liam. It was inevitable. I prefer to think of it as fate. He said it lightly, but something in his eyes wasn't light at all. I have the proposal ready, if you want to look it over. I could bring it by the inn this evening, or you could come by my office. Such as it is, it's mostly a card table in my kitchen when I'm working from the Point house, whichever's easier. The inn's fine. It came out faster than she intended. I mean, I should be there anyway. For the appraiser. Something flickered across his face at the word appraiser. And she watched him decide, visibly, not to ask. 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock. He nodded, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Standing on the sunlit corner, with the whole busy morning bustle of Water Street flowing around them. 2 people who had once known each other better than anyone else on earth, relearning the strange choreography of being near one another without falling into old orbits. It's good to see you, Ava, he said finally, quietly, like he'd been holding the sentence in since the front hall of the inn. I know that's complicated, but it's true. It's good to see you too. Also true, and also, she suspected, dangerous, in the particular way that only the truth ever really was. She watched him walk away down Harbor Lane and did not notice Nora Kim watching them both from the bookshop window, with the deeply satisfied expression of a woman who had just confirmed a long-held theory. Chapter 4, The Proposal. He arrived at 6 with a folder of drawings and a bottle of the sparkling lemonade her grandmother used to keep stocked for guests, and Ava's throat tightened at the small, deliberate kindness of it before he'd even said hello. I didn't know if you'd want wine, he said, setting it on the porch table. Given the circumstances, figured this was safer. It's perfect. She meant it more than the sentence let on. They sat on the wraparound porch in the long gold light of early evening, the ocean going pink and gray beyond the hedge line, and Liam walked her through the proposal with the same careful thoroughness he'd shown during the initial assessment. A phased restoration, historic tax credits that could offset nearly 1/3 of the cost, a timeline that would have the inn open for the following summer season if they broke ground by autumn. It's not cheap, he admitted, when he'd finished. Even with the credits. I won't pretend otherwise, but it's not the $400,000 number the last contractor gave you, either. He was pricing you out on purpose, I think. Hoping you'd sell to the first offer that came along, instead of fighting for the place. How do you know about the $400,000 estimate? Small town. He had the grace to look slightly abashed. Your aunt may have mentioned it. I wasn't trying to overstep. You weren't. Ava paged through the drawings, and something in her chest ached at the sight of his handwriting in the margins. Small, precise notes in a hand she would have recognized blindfolded. This is, Liam, this is beautiful work. You really thought about this place, not just the structural stuff. The porch swing. You kept the porch swing. Some things you don't touch. He said it lightly, but his eyes had gone somewhere else entirely. Somewhere that included the two of them collapsing onto that exact swing laughing. 17 years old and certain the whole world was theirs. It's a good swing. They sat with that for a moment, the ocean breathing in and out beyond the hedges, and Ava found herself asking the question she had been circling since the front hall 3 days ago. Why architecture? You used to talk about the marina, taking over your dad's business. My dad wanted that for me more than I wanted it for myself, I think. Liam turned his glass slowly on the table, watching the condensation ring it left behind. After he passed, I don't know. It felt wrong to keep pretending I wanted a life I'd only ever agreed to, because I was scared of disappointing him. The architecture felt like the first choice I ever made entirely for myself. A pause. That, and I liked the idea of it. Saving things that everyone else had already given up on. Buildings, mostly. But I think I liked the metaphor more than I ever admitted out loud. That's not subtle, Carter. I was never subtle. You always said that about me. A real smile, finally, the first one that reached all the way to his eyes since she'd come home. You were the subtle one, still waters. I used to have to guess what you were actually thinking, half the time. I'm not that subtle anymore. Ava surprised herself with the honesty of it. Boston teaches you to say what you mean. Or at least to say something, before someone else says it for you. I liked you better when I had to work for it. His voice was gentle, teasing, but there was something underneath it that wasn't teasing at all. Kept me on my toes. Liam, she set the drawings down. Can I ask you something, and will you actually answer it? He went very still. Okay, are we going to talk about what happened? Or are we going to spend the next 6 months being very professional about porch swings and structural joists and never once mention that we were engaged to be engaged and then I got on a ferry and we never spoke again? The word engaged landed between them like a stone dropped into still water, rings spreading out in every direction. Liam set his glass down very carefully, like a man handling something that might shatter. I've thought about that conversation for 5 years, he said finally. I've had it in my head 100 different ways. I never once figured out how to start it. Start with why you never called. I did call. The words came out low, almost startled, like a confession he hadn't planned to make. For the first 2 months, you never called back. Ava felt the ground shift under the porch. I never got any calls, Liam. Not one. I checked my phone for weeks. I thought, her voice cracked. I thought you'd decided it was easier to just let me go. They stared at each other in the fading light. 5 years of silence suddenly cracking open to reveal something neither of them had expected to find underneath it. Not indifference, not a slow, natural drifting apart, but something that looked, increasingly, like a mistake that had been made a very long time ago and never once corrected. That doesn't make sense, Liam said slowly. I called your dorm number. I have the phone records somewhere. I kept everything, Ava, for longer than I probably should have. Somewhere behind Ava's ribs, something old and carefully buried began, very quietly, to shift. Show me, she said. Chapter 5, What the Records Show. He came back the next evening with a manila folder that looked older than either of them, its edges soft with handling, and Ava understood, watching him set it on the porch table with the reverence of a man handling something sacred, that he had not been exaggerating when he said he'd kept everything. Old sketches. A pressed sea lavender flower, brittle and faded. A photograph of the two of them at 17, sunburned and laughing on the dock, that made Ava's breath catch in her throat. And beneath it all, a single sheet of paper, an itemized phone bill from a company that had gone out of business a decade ago, dated the September after she left for Boston. 3 calls to a Boston number, each one 4 minutes or less. 3 attempts, and then nothing. 4 minutes isn't even long enough to leave a voicemail properly, Ava said quietly, tracing the dates with one finger. What happened after the 3rd call? I called your dorm room and a girl answered. Not you, she said. He stopped, jaw working, and Ava watched him drag the memory up from wherever he'd buried it. She said you'd asked her to tell anyone who called, that you'd moved on, and you didn't want to be contacted, that you were trying to focus on school. I figured you'd changed your mind about us. About the not yet. His voice had gone rough. I figured I was supposed to respect that, so I did. God help me, Ava. I respected it for 5 years. Ava sat very still, her mind turning backward through a hallway she had not walked in a long time. A roommate, freshman year. A girl named Kristen, who had transferred out after the first semester, and whom Ava had barely thought of since. I never said that. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Liam, I never told anyone to say that. I called your house so many times, that first month my mother took my phone away, because she said I was, and I quote, making myself sick over a boy in a town I'd already left. I wrote you 3 letters. I never got a single one back. I never got any letters. He looked, in that moment, like a man watching a building he had spent years believing was structurally sound reveal. All at once, a fault line running straight through its foundation. Ava, I swear to you, I never got a letter. They looked at each other across the porch table, across 5 years, across a silence that had felt, for half a decade, like the natural conclusion of 2 people who had simply grown apart, and which now looked, in the fading gold light, like something else entirely. Something engineered, something that had required a person, or several people, actively working to keep 2 letters, 2 phone lines, 2 hearts from ever reaching each other. Your mother, Ava said slowly, didn't love the idea of you and me. She wanted you at the marina, running the family business, not chasing a girl to Boston who'd only distract you from your father's expectations. She watched the realization land in his face even as she said it. And my mother wanted you focused on school, not tangled up in a small-town relationship that she was always a little afraid would pull you back here permanently. Liam's hand had curled into a fist on the table, not in anger, exactly, but in something close to it. Grief, maybe. For 5 years, neither of them should have had to lose. You think our parents? I don't know what I think. Ava pressed her fingers against her eyes, willing herself not to cry on a porch that suddenly held twice as much history as it had that morning. I think I need to actually find out. Not guess. Find out. Okay. Liam's voice was steady, careful. The voice of a man laying the first beam of something he did not yet know the shape of. Then let's find out. Together, if you'll let me. Ava looked at him, at the boy who had built her a house out of a diner placemat, who had kept a pressed flower and a phone bill for 5 years, who had, apparently, spent half a decade grieving a rejection that had never actually happened, and felt something inside her chest that she had spent 5 years carefully, deliberately starving, against every ounce of her better judgment, to wake back up. Together, she agreed, and reached across the table, and did not let herself examine too closely what it meant that his hand found hers before the word had even finished leaving her mouth. Chapter 6. Rain It. It rained for 3 days straight, the kind of steady, Silver Harbor's End rain that turned the harbor to pewter and kept the tourists huddled in the cafes on Water Street. And Ava spent it going through 5 decades of her grandmother's correspondence in the inn's cramped office, searching, with a purpose she hadn't quite named out loud, for anything that might explain the missing letters. She found the first one on the second afternoon, tucked into a book of poetry on her grandmother's nightstand, of all places, a small stack of unopened envelopes, addressed to Liam Carter in her own 19-year-old handwriting, never mailed, the stamps still pristine. Beneath them, a note in Ava Reynolds' careful hand. Your mother asked me to hold on to these until you'd had time to settle into your new life. I did not think it was my place to disagree with her. I have regretted that every day since. Forgive an old woman for believing, for a little while, that she knew better than your own heart. Ava sat on the floor of her grandmother's bedroom with the letters in her lap and cried for a long time. For her grandmother's guilt, for the 5 wasted years, for the version of herself who had written those letters believing, with her whole aching heart, that they would reach the person they were meant for. She called Liam before she'd even finished drying her face. Come over, she said, when he picked up. I found something. He was at the inn in 11 minutes, soaked through from the rain, and stood in the office doorway, reading the note in her grandmother's handwriting, with an expression Ava had never seen on him before. Something between fury and grief, and a terrible, aching tenderness. Your mother, he said quietly. My mother asked my grandmother to hold my letters. I don't know if she ever told her to stop them permanently, or if it was just supposed to be a few weeks and it got away from everyone. I don't know yet what happened on your end, but Liam, her voice shook. I wrote you 3 letters. She kept every single one. He sat down heavily in the desk chair across from her, and for a long moment, neither of them said anything at all, listening to the rain hammer the old windows, the same windows that had watched over this inn and this town, and the whole slow unraveling of their story for 5 years. I need to talk to my mother, he said finally, about the phone calls, about what that girl said to me. Ava, I think I need to know if she knew anything about it. Are you scared of what you'll find? Terrified? He looked up, and his eyes were red-rimmed, raw in a way she hadn't seen since his father's funeral, which she had watched from a distance on social media, aching to go to him and not knowing if she had any right to. Because if she knew, if she let me believe you didn't want me for 5 years, knowing it wasn't true, then you'll have to decide what to do with that. Ava reached across the desk and took his hand, the way he had taken hers on the porch 3 days before. Same as I will, but Liam, whatever we find out about them, about what they did or didn't do, it doesn't undo what we did to ourselves, too. I could have shown up at your door. I could have gotten on a plane, instead of writing a letter and hoping. I let the silence convince me faster than I should have. So did I. His thumb moved gently over her knuckles, an old, familiar gesture that neither of them seemed able to stop. I think that's the part I keep getting stuck on. Not just what they did, what we let it do to us. Outside, the rain began, finally, to ease, thinning into the kind of soft mist that made the whole harbor look like something out of an old photograph, sepia-toned and half-remembered. I'm not asking you to fix 5 years in an afternoon, Ava said quietly. I don't think that's possible, even now that we know. But I don't want to keep being careful with each other either. Not when we finally know why we needed to be. Liam looked at her for a long moment, rain-soaked and red-eyed, and more open than she had seen him since she came home, and something in his face settled, like a man finally setting down a weight he had carried for a very long time. Then let's not be careful, he said. Let's just be honest, however long that takes. Chapter 7. The Marina. His mother, it turned out, cried before he'd even finished the question. He told Ava about it 2 days later, sitting on the seawall near the old marina, where his father's boats used to dock. The same spot where he'd once taught a 12-year-old Ava how to skip stones, and she'd beaten him at it within the hour, infuriating him for the rest of that summer. She didn't lie about knowing, he said, watching a gull ride the wind above the breakwater. She lied about the reason, said she thought a girl telling me to move on would hurt less than an ocean of silence I'd never get an answer to. Said she thought she was protecting me. His jaw tightened. She wasn't protecting me. She was protecting the plan she had for my life. The marina, staying close, not chasing a girl 3 states away who she was always a little afraid would take me somewhere she couldn't follow. Is she sorry? She's sorry I'm angry with her. I'm not sure yet if that's the same thing as sorry for what she did. He exhaled, long and slow, the kind of breath a person takes when they are setting something heavy down. She said your mother made the same call around the same time, that they'd talked about it together, actually. 2 mothers, deciding what was best for 2 kids who were, apparently, too young and too stubborn to be trusted with their own hearts. Ava had already suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed still landed like a blow. My mother finally admitted it too, when I called her about the letters. Her voice was flat, exhausted in the particular way that only truth after a long search could exhaust a person. She said she'd panicked. Sighed watching me almost turn down Boston for a boy terrified her, because she'd done the same thing at my age. Turned down her own scholarship for a man who left her 2 years later anyway. And she couldn't stand the thought of watching me make what she was sure would be the same mistake. So they both decided to make the mistake for us instead. Something like that. Ava sat down beside him on the seawall, close enough that their shoulders touched, the ocean spread out gray-blue and endless in front of them. I keep waiting to feel angrier than I do. Mostly I just feel sad. For all of us. For them too, honestly. I think they really believed they were protecting us. I keep going back and forth. Liam picked up a flat stone, turned it over in his fingers without throwing it. Angry at my mother. Angry at myself for believing a stranger over 5 years of knowing you. Angry at the version of me that gave up so easily. He finally sent the stone skipping across the water. 4 hops, a respectable throw. And then some mornings I just feel grateful, which feels insane, given everything. But if none of it had happened, if I'd never lost you the first time, I don't know if I'd have become the person standing here right now. The one who finally figured out what he actually wanted out of his own life instead of just inheriting his father's. I think about that too. Ava watched the gulls wheel and dive over the breakwater. I don't know if I'd have taken the Boston job if I hadn't been so determined to build a life good enough to justify what it cost me to leave. I don't know if I'd have grown into whoever I am now. I like her, mostly, the woman I became. She glanced sideways at him. I just wish it hadn't cost us 5 years to become these people separately, instead of finding a way to become them together. We can't get the 5 years back. Liam's voice was quiet, careful, laying groundwork. But I don't think that means we're too late for whatever comes next. Unless you've decided you are. I won't push you into anything you're not sure about. Ava, not again. I did enough of that, letting a stranger's voice on a phone decide something that should have been between the two of us. I'm not sure of anything right now. It was the most honest thing she'd said since coming home. I'm sure the inn matters. I'm sure I don't want to sell it to a hotel chain that'll gut the porch swing and put a spa where my grandmother's kitchen used to be. I'm sure that I keep finding excuses to be wherever you are, and that terrifies me more than the appraiser does. A shaky laugh. I don't know what to do with any of that yet. I just know I'm done pretending I don't feel it. Liam reached over and took her hand, the way he had on the porch, the way he had every day since, an old habit resurrecting itself with startling ease. Then we don't have to know yet, he said. We just have to stop lying to ourselves about the part where it's already happening. Ava let her head rest against his shoulder, watching the tide come in over the breakwater where they had once been children together, and did not correct him, because he was right, and because for the first time in 5 years, she did not want him to be wrong. Chapter 8. 2 Mothers. Ava's mother arrived from Portland on a Thursday, ostensibly to help with the appraiser's paperwork, and Ava met her at the ferry dock with a hug that felt, for the first time in years, complicated in a new and specific way. You look happy, Diane Reynolds said, studying her daughter with the particular unnerving attentiveness only a mother can manage. Happier than the estate business usually makes people. I found the letters, Mom. Ava had decided, somewhere on the walk down from the inn, that she was done circling the subject. The ones I wrote Liam. Grandma kept them. You asked her to. Her mother's face went through several expressions in quick succession. Surprise, then something like guilt, then a weary, resigned honesty that Ava had rarely seen in her. I did, she said finally. I'm not going to pretend I didn't. I asked your grandmother to hold them for a few weeks, just until you'd had time to settle into school. I told myself a few weeks wouldn't hurt anything. She looked out at the harbor, unable to meet Ava's eyes. Your grandmother told me, more than once, that she thought it was a mistake. I didn't listen. I was so afraid of watching you make the choice I made at your age, turning down something enormous for a boy in a small town, that I convinced myself I was protecting you from becoming me. You could have just talked to me, trusted me to make my own mistakes, if they even were mistakes. I know that now. Her mother's voice cracked. I've known it for longer than I've been willing to admit. Watching you these last few weeks, watching who you are with him, how sure you seem, how happy. I keep thinking about all the years I cost you both. I am sorry, Ava. Genuinely, thoroughly sorry. I don't expect that to undo anything. I just needed you to hear it, plainly, without excuses attached. Ava had rehearsed a dozen versions of this conversation in her head over the preceding weeks, most of them considerably angrier than the moment that actually arrived. But standing on the dock with her mother's genuine remorse laid bare in front of her, she found that most of the anger had already burned itself out somewhere over the summer, replaced by something quieter and more useful. I forgive you, she said, and meant it, mostly, the way forgiveness often arrives, imperfect, still healing, true nonetheless. I'm not going to say it didn't cost us anything, because it did. 5 years, Mom. That's not nothing, But I don't want to spend the next 5 being angry about it. I'd rather spend them happy, and I'd rather you be part of that, if you can actually let go of trying to manage my life for me. I can try. Her mother wiped her eyes, laughing a little at herself. It's a hard habit to break. Watching you almost make what I thought was my mistake all over again terrified me. It still does, a little. But I saw you two on that porch yesterday, from the car, before you noticed me. I haven't seen you look at anyone like that, not even close. I think I owe you the trust I should have given you 5 years ago. They found Liam's mother, Patricia Carter, at the inn an hour later, having arrived independently to drop off a housewarming gift for the newly restored porch. And the 4 of them, Ava, Liam, and both mothers, ended up sitting stiffly around the kitchen table, in a conversation none of them had planned, but all of them, it turned out, had been quietly needing for months. I want to say something, Patricia began, twisting her hands in her lap with none of her usual brisk composure. To both of you, I let a stranger's lie stand between my son and the person he loved, because it was easier than admitting I was afraid of losing him, to a life I couldn't follow him into. That's an ugly thing to say out loud, but it's the truth, and I think you've both earned the truth by now, whatever it costs me to give it. It cost us 5 years, Liam said, quietly, no longer performing calm for anyone's benefit. I need you to actually understand that, Mom. Not just apologize for it in the abstract. 5 birthdays, 5 Christmases, an entire chunk of both our 20s we can't get back. I understand. Patricia's voice broke. I've understood it every single day since you told me about the letters. I don't have a good enough excuse for what I did. I just have regret, and a promise, if either of you will accept it, to never again decide I know better than you do about your own heart. Diane reached across the table, an unexpected gesture, and took Patricia's hand. We did this together, she said, 2 frightened mothers, deciding we knew best. I think we owe each other an apology as much as we owe one to them. It was not, Ava would reflect later, a tidy resolution. Old wounds rarely closed so neatly, and there would be, she suspected, months yet of careful rebuilding between all 4 of them. Small tests of trust re-established one ordinary Sunday dinner at a time. But something essential shifted around that kitchen table all the same. 4 people, finally honest with one another, finally willing to set down 5 years of careful, protective silence in favor of something harder and infinitely more valuable. For what it's worth, Liam said, once both mothers had gone quiet, wrung out from the honesty of it. I'm not angry anymore. I was, for a while. I think I needed to be. But watching you both sit here and actually own it, that's worth more to me than 5 more years of resentment would be. Me too, Ava said, reaching for his hand under the table, an old habit that had become, by now, simply instinct. We got here eventually. That has to count for something. It counts for everything, Patricia said, and for the first time since Ava had come home, she saw something like real warmth pass between herself and the woman who might, someday not too far off, become her mother-in-law, the beginning, however imperfect, of the 2 families, finally, properly, coming home to each other. Chapter 9. Groundbreaking. Ava signed the contract with Carter Restoration and Design on a Tuesday morning in early July. The hotel group's unanswered offer finally, formally declined, and the whole town of Harbor's End seemed to exhale with her. As if the fate of the Wayfarer Inn had been a held breath, the entire community had been sharing without quite admitting it. You're doing the right thing, said Walt Higgins, who had been the inn's caretaker since before Ava was born, a weathered, gentle man who had wept openly at Eleanor's funeral and now stood in the front hall, watching the demolition crew begin work on the rotted porch supports with an expression of fierce, quiet joy. Eleanor's smiling somewhere. I'd bet money on it. I hope so. Ava watched Liam direct 2 workers toward the widow's walk access, clipboard in hand, entirely in his element, the boy who used to draw houses on placemats, now building an actual one, plank by careful plank. It's terrifying, Walt. All this money, all this risk. Good things mostly are. Walt patted her shoulder with the same rough affection he'd shown her as a child, back when he used to sneak her extra pancakes from the inn's kitchen when her grandmother wasn't looking. Your grandmother took a risk on this place back in '62. Everybody told her a woman couldn't run an inn alone on a shoestring budget in a town this small. She did it anyway, 41 years. Some risks are worth taking twice. Over the following weeks, Ava found herself falling into an unexpected rhythm, mornings spent on calls with the Historic Preservation Board, afternoons walking the property with Liam as the restoration slowly began to take shape, the wraparound porch rebuilt board by board, the widow's walk framed anew, the whole inn seeming to wake back up under the careful, patient work of a man who clearly loved every inch of it as much as she did. The town noticed, the way small towns always notice everything. The mayor, a genial, gossip-prone woman named Diane Ferris, made a point of stopping by the inn twice a week under the transparent pretense of checking on progress. That fooled absolutely no one. The elderly Whitfield sisters, who had attended Ava's grandmother's wedding at the inn back in 1965, took to sitting on the seawall bench most afternoons to watch the work and reminisce, loudly and happily, about the summer Liam and Ava had first started sneaking around, their words, as teenagers. "We could see you two from clear across the harbor," Millicent Whitfield told Ava one afternoon, entirely without shame, as her sister Dot nodded along. "Sitting on that dock every evening like the whole world began and ended with each other. We always said you'd find your way back around. Didn't we say that, Dot?" "Said it at Eleanor's funeral, in fact," Dot confirmed. "Betty Sue owes me $20. Ava laughed despite herself, and found, increasingly, that she was laughing more in Harbor's End than she had in 5 years in Boston. Real laughter, the kind that came easily and often, the kind that seemed to live specifically in this town, in this rebuilding inn, in the particular gravity of being near Liam Carter again. It was on one such evening, the two of them sitting on the porch steps after the crew had gone home, watching the sunset burn orange and gold over the newly framed widow's walk above them, that Liam finally asked the question they had both been circling for weeks. "Can I take you to dinner?" His voice was careful, deliberately light, though his eyes gave away how much weight the question actually carried. Not a work dinner, not a let's discuss the restoration budget dinner, just dinner, you and me. Ava looked at him in the fading light, sawdust in his hair, a smudge of paint on his jaw, exactly as unguarded as she'd seen him since she came home, and felt the last of her careful defenses give way, all at once, like a dam finally admitting it had been holding back a flood the whole time. "Yes," she said, "I'd like that very much." Chapter 10. Blue Anchor. They went to the Blue Anchor, repainted, reopened, but still, blessedly, run by Danny Weaver's daughter, with most of the original menu intact, and sat at a table by the window, overlooking the harbor. And for the first hour, Ava was almost too nervous to eat, absurdly, ridiculously nervous, the way she hadn't been on a first date in years. "This is strange," she admitted, halfway through her lobster roll. "I've known you since I was 12. I've seen you cry. I've seen you break your arm falling off the marina roof on a dare, and I am somehow more nervous right now than I was meeting my last boyfriend's parents." I could take that as an insult. Liam's mouth twitched. Or I could take it as a very good sign. Take it as both. She laughed, and some of the tension in her shoulders finally eased. "How does it feel? Being back on the market, so to speak, after 5 years. Terrifying." He said it lightly, but his eyes were serious underneath it. "I haven't really dated. Not properly. A few dinners here and there, nothing that ever went anywhere. I kept comparing everyone to..." He stopped himself, visibly. "To what?" "To you." He said it plainly, without flinching, the old careful boy giving way to a man who had apparently decided honesty was worth more than composure. "I know how that sounds. Believe me, I've had 5 years to feel embarrassed about it. But it's true. I never stopped comparing everyone to you, and nobody ever measured up. And I told myself that was just nostalgia, just missing my first love the way everybody misses their first love. It took you walking back into that front hall for me to admit it was never just nostalgia. I never actually let you go, Ava, not once, not for a single day of those 5 years." The restaurant noise seemed to recede around them, the clatter of dishes and the low murmur of other conversations fading into something distant and unimportant. "I told myself I'd moved on," Ava said quietly, matching his honesty with her own. "I dated. I had a whole relationship, actually, almost 2 years. A good man, kind, stable, Everything my mother would have picked for me if she'd had the choice. I broke it off 8 months ago and told everyone it was because the timing was wrong, or the spark had faded, or 100 other reasons that all sounded true enough to repeat at dinner parties. She met his eyes. The real reason was that every time he said he loved me, some part of me was doing math, comparing, wondering if it was supposed to feel bigger than it did. And I hated myself for it, because it wasn't fair to him, and it wasn't fair to me either. Still holding a door open for someone I'd convinced myself I'd closed the door on years ago. Ava. Her name in his mouth had always sounded different than it did in anyone else's. Softer, more deliberate, like a word he'd been practicing his whole life. I don't want to rush you into anything. I know we have 5 years of missing context between us, and 100 conversations we still need to have, and an entire restoration project that's going to keep throwing us together, whether either of us is ready for it or not. But I need you to know where I stand, so you're not guessing. So nobody has to guess, this time, not even a little. Where do you stand? I never stopped loving you. He said it simply, without performance, the truest sentence either of them had spoken all night. I loved you at 19 on that dock, and I loved you at 22 building a career I told myself was just about buildings, and I loved you 3 weeks ago, when you walked through that front door, and my whole chest forgot how to work properly. I don't expect you to say it back tonight. I'm not asking you to. I just needed you to know that whatever this is, whatever it turns into, it isn't new for me. It's 5 years old, and it never once went anywhere. Ava sat very still, feeling something enormous and long-damned finally break loose inside her chest, and reached across the table to take his hand, the way she had on the porch weeks ago, except this time, there was nothing careful about it at all. I'm not ready to say it back tonight either, she said, her voice thick. But I need you to know I'm not scared of where this is going anymore. I spent 5 years scared of exactly this. Of wanting you again. Of being wrong again. Of the whole thing collapsing a second time, and taking whatever was left of me down with it. I'm not scared of it tonight. I think that means something. I think it means everything. He turned her hand over in his, tracing the lines of her palm the way he used to, a gesture 5 years hadn't managed to erase. Slow, though, however slow you need. I've waited 5 years, Ava. I can wait as long as it takes to do this right. I don't think I want slow. A small, brave smile broke across her face, the first truly unguarded smile she'd given him since she came home. I think I've done enough waiting for one lifetime. But I'll take honest. I'll take careful with the truth, even when it's hard. That, I can promise you. Deal. He raised her hand to his lips, an old-fashioned gesture that should have felt performative, and instead felt like the most natural thing in the world. 5 years and a whole lifetime folding gently back together, over a table at the Blue Anchor Diner, exactly where, 20 years ago, 2 children had first become friends without either of them knowing it was the beginning of the only love story either of them would ever really want. Chapter 11. Farmer's Market. Word traveled through Harbor's End with the speed and thoroughness of a town that had spent 5 years waiting for exactly this news. And by the time Ava and Liam walked hand in hand through the Saturday farmer's market 3 weeks later, half the vendors had already heard, and none of them were shy about saying so. About time, said the woman at the flower stall, pressing a bundle of sea lavender into Ava's free hand with a wink and a refusal to accept payment. Eleanor would have had something to say about how long it took you to. She probably would have engineered it herself if she'd had another year, Ava admitted, laughing, and found she meant it. Her grandmother had never once mentioned Liam without a particular warmth in her voice, and Ava wondered now, with a bittersweet ache, whether Eleanor's guilt over the withheld letters had shaped every one of those small, persistent questions about him over the years, a quiet, ongoing penance disguised as idle curiosity. They spent the morning wandering the market stalls, sampling honey and heirloom tomatoes, running into what felt like half the town, each encounter warmer and more openly delighted than the last. Liam's younger sister, Grace, home from college for the summer, ambushed them near the cheese vendor, with the barely restrained glee of a woman who had grown up watching her brother mope through 5 Christmases. I need you to know, Grace informed Ava solemnly, that I have been forced to listen to that man talk about you for 5 years. 5 years. I deserve some kind of medal, possibly a cash prize. Grace. Liam's ears had gone visibly red. I'm just saying, Ava, you have no idea the sacrifice I made, being his sister through the darkest timeline. He alphabetized his spice rack in 2023. That's not a healthy coping mechanism. That's a cry for help. I have never been prouder of a spice rack, Liam said, deadpan, and Ava laughed so hard she had to lean against him to stay upright, and he wrapped an arm around her without hesitation, the easy, natural gesture of a man who had apparently decided, somewhere between the Blue Anchor and this sunlit Saturday market, that he was done being careful about showing the town, showing anyone, exactly how he felt. Later, they sat on the seawall with paper cups of fresh pressed cider, watching a group of children chase each other across the town green, and Ava found her thoughts drifting, unbidden, to a young couple she'd noticed at the market, newly engaged by the look of the ring, laughing over a shared pastry, wrapped in the particular golden certainty of people who believed, wholeheartedly, that nothing could ever come between them. Do you think they'll make it? She asked, nodding toward the couple. That certainty they have right now, do you think it lasts? I used to think certainty was the whole game. Liam considered the question seriously, the way he considered everything. That if you were sure enough, wanted it badly enough, nothing could touch it. I was that certain about us, once. And it wasn't enough. 2 mothers and a bad phone call took the whole thing apart in about 6 weeks. So what do you think now? I think certainty's overrated. I think what actually lasts is the choosing. Not the falling. The falling's easy. The falling happens to you whether you want it to or not. But the choosing, over and over, on the boring days and the hard days, and the days somebody's mother decides she knows better than you do about your own heart. He looked at her, sun-warmed, and open in a way that still occasionally stole her breath. I fell for you when I was 12 years old, and didn't know what falling even meant. I'm choosing you now, at 25, with my eyes wide open, knowing exactly how much it can cost to lose you. That feels like the more important one, to me. Ava set down her cider and kissed him then, unhurried, in full view of the farmer's market and the Whitfield sisters, and half the population of Harbor's End, and did not care, for the first time in 5 years, who was watching, or what they might say, or whether the whole town had already decided this was inevitable long before she had let herself believe it. I'm choosing you too, she said against his mouth, and felt him smile before he kissed her again. Behind them, from the direction of the flower stall, came the unmistakable sound of Dot Whitfield, loudly informing her sister that Betty Sue now owed her $40. Chapter 12. The Lighthouse. The old Harbor's End lighthouse had been decommissioned for a decade, its beacon dark, its keeper's cottage empty, but the cliffside trail leading up to it remained the town's best-kept secret for anyone wanting a view worth the climb, and it was here, on an evening in late July, that Liam brought Ava with a picnic basket and a request that she trust him, just this once, without asking why. You're being suspicious, she informed him, as they climbed the last switchback in the fading light. I'm being romantic, there's a difference. He set the basket down at the top of the trail, where the whole of Harbor's End spread out below them, the harbor gone molten gold in the sunset, the Wayfarer Inn just visible on its hill, scaffolding and all, a work in progress catching the last light like a promise. They ate on a blanket at the lighthouse's base, the restoration's slow progress a comfortable topic between them. The porch nearly finished now, the Widow's Walk rebuilt and structurally sound, the Historic Preservation Board's approval secured after weeks of paperwork Ava had never wanted to think about again in her life. I have something to tell you, Liam said, once the meal was mostly finished, and something in his voice made Ava go still. It's not bad, I promise it's not bad, but I've been sitting on it for a week, and I don't want to sit on it anymore. You're scaring me a little. Sorry, that's not the intent. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket pocket, worn soft at the creases, and Ava recognized it, with a jolt, as one of the 3 unmailed letters her grandmother had kept, the one Ava had finally read aloud to him, weeks ago, on a night that had left them both in tears on the porch steps. I asked if I could keep this one, he said. You said yes, and I don't think you really understood what I meant to do with it. He unfolded it carefully. There's a line in here, near the end. Do you remember what you wrote? Ava's chest tightened. She remembered every word of that letter, had relived it 100 times in the weeks since she'd found it, but she let him read it anyway, because his voice made it sound like something new, something she hadn't already grieved and buried and dug back up. "I don't know what happens next," he read, quiet and careful in the dying light, "or whether this town or this feeling will still be here when I'm ready to come back to it. But I want you to know that wherever I go, I'm taking the best parts of you with me. The boy who draws houses for girls he loves, who believes broken things are always worth fixing if you're patient enough. I hope, someday, when the timing finally makes sense, you'll let me come home to both." He looked up from the letter, and Ava realized, with a soft, overwhelming rush, that his eyes were wet. "You were 19 years old," he said, "and you already knew exactly who I was, and exactly who I was going to become, before I knew it myself. I've spent 5 years becoming the man in that letter, without even realizing that's who I was building toward." He reached into his other pocket, and Ava's heart stopped entirely as he produced. Not a ring, not yet, she would understand later. He was too careful, too deliberate a man to rush that particular moment, but a small, hand-carved wooden house, no bigger than her palm, 3 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, a widow's walk on top. "I couldn't draw it on a placemat this time," he said, his voice unsteady, "so I built it instead. I know we're not there yet. I know there's still a whole life to build between the two of us, before anything like a real house makes sense. But I wanted you to have this, so you'd know I meant it, 20 years ago and today. The porch, the widow's walk, all of it. I still want to build that life with you, Ava, whenever you're ready, however long it takes." Ava took the small wooden house in both hands, tracing its impossibly careful details, the porch railings, the tiny shingled roof, the widow's walk exactly as he'd once described it, so she could watch for him, and felt every last wall she had built over 5 years of careful, protective distance come down at once, gently, without violence, the way old, unnecessary scaffolding finally comes away from a building strong enough to stand on its own. "I love you," she said, the words arriving easily, finally, after weeks of circling them. "I never stopped either, Liam. I just got very good at pretending, for a very long time, that pretending was the same thing as healing. It's not the same thing." He pulled her close, and the lighthouse stood dark and patient above them, and the harbor glittered gold and quiet below. The whole town they had grown up in holding its breath around the two of them, the way it had been doing, Ava suspected, for weeks. "But I think we're doing the real thing now. Together. Together," she agreed, and kissed him under the old dark lighthouse, and somewhere below them, in the last light over the water, the Wayfarer Inn stood waiting, half restored and wholly hopeful, for the rest of its story to unfold. Chapter 13. The Harvest Festival Harbor's End, through its Founders' Day festival on the second weekend of August every year without fail, a tradition older than the inn itself, and this year, the town green was strung with paper lanterns and crowded with food stalls by the time Ava and Liam arrived, hand in hand, an hour before sunset. "I forgot how much I missed this," Ava admitted, watching a trio of children chase each other around the gazebo, where a local band was tuning up for the evening's dancing. "Boston has festivals, they're not like this. Nothing's like this." Liam steered her toward the pie contest table, where Carol was defending her blue ribbon from the previous 3 years with the fierce, good-natured competitiveness that ran in the family. Small towns don't do subtlety. Everybody just decides to love each other loudly, once a year, in public, with pie. They found the Whitfield sisters holding their customary post beneath the old oak at the green's center, a spot they had claimed, by Millicent's account, since 1974, and were promptly recruited into judging a ring toss game that Dot insisted required young eyes, despite the fact that both sisters could clearly see the rings perfectly well themselves. "We remember your first festival together," Millicent said, settling back in her folding chair with the satisfied air of a woman about to tell a favorite story. "You two were what, 16? 17? Liam won you that ridiculous stuffed pelican at the ring toss, and you carried it around all night like it was the crown jewels." "I still have that pelican," Ava admitted, laughing, and caught Liam's startled, delighted look out of the corner of her eye. "It's in a box in my old bedroom at my mother's house. I never could bring myself to get rid of it. Some things you just know to hold on to." Dot said, with the particular satisfaction of a woman who had spent an entire summer watching a decades-old prediction finally come true, even when you tell yourself you don't know why. As the evening deepened into the golden hour that seemed to belong specifically to Harbor's End, the green filled further, Nora Kim manning a used bookstall beside the food trucks, Walt Higgins running the horseshoe pit with the same gruff patience he'd once used to teach a young Ava how to properly ice a boat's hull, Mayor Ferris working the crowd with practiced enthusiasm, stopping at every third table to ask after someone's garden or someone's grandchildren. Grace found them near the cider stand, trailing a young man Ava hadn't met, introduced with a studied casualness that fooled no one. "This is Sam. He's studying marine biology. He's very smart, and I am absolutely not going to make a big deal out of introducing him to you two, because that would be embarrassing." "You're making a big deal out of it right now," Liam pointed out. "I am aware. Thank you. I don't need commentary from the man who alphabetized his spice rack out of Heartbreak." Grace steered Sam away toward the band with theatrical dignity, and Ava laughed until her sides hurt, leaning into Liam's shoulder as the first notes of the evening's dance music drifted across the green. They danced, eventually, on the makeshift wooden floor laid out in front of the gazebo, unhurried and easy in a way that still occasionally caught Ava by surprise. How simple it had become, being with him, after a summer of careful, deliberate rebuilding. Around them, other couples turned slowly under the paper lanterns. An elderly pair Ava recognized as regulars at the inn, married 61 years by Nora's count, moving together with the unconscious fluency of decades. A newly engaged younger couple from 2 towns over, laughing too loudly at nothing, wrapped in the particular golden certainty Ava remembered from the farmer's market weeks before. "Do you ever wonder," Ava asked, resting her head against Liam's shoulder as they swayed, "what our 16-year-old selves would think if they could see us right now? I think 16-year-old me would be smug beyond belief." Liam's mouth curved against her hair. "He always said he was going to marry you someday. Told his dad that exact thing once, at the marina, completely serious. I don't think he even really understood what marrying someone meant. He just knew he never wanted to stop finding excuses to be near you. 16-year-old me would probably be relieved." Ava tightened her arms around his neck, watching the lanterns sway gently above them, the whole green glowing amber and joyful in the last of the light. "She spent a lot of that year convinced she was going to ruin everything by loving you too much, too obviously. I used to practice being casual about it in the mirror. It never worked. I noticed." He laughed, low and warm. "You were a terrible actress. Still are, actually. I always knew exactly what you were feeling. You've just gotten braver about admitting it out loud." The band shifted into a slower song, and around the green the lanterns swayed gently in the evening breeze, coming up off the harbor, carrying the smell of salt and wood smoke and fried dough from the food stalls, the whole town wrapped in the particular, unhurried happiness of a place that had, after everything, gotten its 2 favorite people back. "I love this town," Ava said quietly, watching the crowd move around them, familiar faces, familiar laughter, an entire community that had quietly, patiently rooted for them through 5 lost years and 1 long, hopeful summer. "I don't think I ever let myself admit how much I missed it. I was so busy being proud of the life I built somewhere else that I never let myself grieve the one I left behind." "You don't have to grieve it anymore." Liam pressed a kiss to her temple, swaying with her under the paper lanterns as the last light faded gold over the water. "You get to just live it now, all of it. The town, the inn, the ridiculous stuffed pelican in a box at your mother's house. And you," she added, smiling against his chest. "And me," he agreed, holding her close as the music played on and the whole green glowed warm around them. Harbor's End, wrapped in its oldest tradition, celebrating, without quite saying so, the return of 2 of its own. Chapter 14, A Complication. The letter from the hotel group's regional director arrived on a Wednesday, 3 weeks before the inn's scheduled reopening, and Ava read it twice at the kitchen table before she trusted herself to speak. "They're offering more," she said, when Liam came in from the porch, sawdust on his hands, an easy smile fading the moment he saw her face. "A lot more, enough to pay off the restoration costs twice over, and still walk away with money to spare. Ava, he sat down across from her, careful, watching her face. Do you want to sell? No. The answer came immediately, without hesitation, and something in her chest settled at how sure it felt. But it's not just about what I want anymore. Liam, we're 3 weeks from opening. You've poured months into this place. The whole town's been treating the reopening like a festival. If I even consider this offer, I feel like I'm betraying everyone who's had faith in this project. In us. Then don't consider it. His voice was gentle but firm. This is your decision, Ava. Not the town's, not mine, not your mother's or my mother's ghost of an opinion. Yours. But for what it's worth, I didn't put 6 months of work into this place because I thought it was a smart financial investment. I did it because I believed you when you said it was worth saving. If that's still true, the money shouldn't matter. It's not that simple. Ava rubbed her temples, feeling the old, familiar weight of practical fear pressing in around the edges of something she desperately wanted to be simple. I have student loans. I have a career in Boston I'd essentially be walking away from if I stay here and run an inn full-time. I don't actually know how to run an inn, Liam. I know marketing. I know how to sell other people's dreams. I don't know the first thing about actually building one of my own from the ground up. You know more than you think. He reached across the table and took her hand. You've been here every day for 2 months. You know this building better than the Historic Preservation Board does at this point. You negotiated the tax credit paperwork better than my own accountant. You are already running this inn, Ava. You've just been too scared to call it that out loud. Ava sat with that for a long moment, watching the afternoon light move across the kitchen table where her grandmother had once done the inn's books by hand every single evening for 41 years, and felt something shift inside her. Not resolution, exactly, not yet, but the first real crack of light through a door she had been keeping carefully shut. I need to think, she said finally. Not about whether to sell, I know the answer to that. About what it actually means to say yes to staying, to you, to all of it. I don't want to make that decision out of fear of disappointing people, the same way our mothers made decisions for us out of their own fears 5 years ago. I want to make it because it's actually what I want, all the way down, with nothing left over that I'm not looking at honestly. Take whatever time you need. Liam's voice held no trace of hurt, only steady, patient understanding, the voice of a man who had learned, the hard way, exactly what it cost to let someone else's fear make a decision that should have belonged to 2 people alone. I'm not going anywhere, Ava. I told you that already. I meant it. She walked the cliffside trail alone that evening, past the lighthouse, past the spot where he had given her the small wooden house 3 weeks earlier, and sat looking out over the darkening water for a long time, turning the decision over and over, examining it from every angle, checking it for the shape of old fear dressed up as new caution. By the time the stars came out over Harbor's End, she had her answer, and it was not the one born of fear at all. Chapter 15. What Ava Wants. She found him at the Point House at 9 that night, blueprints spread across his kitchen table exactly the way Nora Kim had described, working by lamplight with a coffee gone cold beside him. And he looked up when she knocked on the open door with an expression of such immediate, unguarded hope that Ava's decision felt, suddenly, entirely obvious. I declined the offer, she said, before he could ask. I sent the email an hour ago. The inn isn't for sale. Not now, not to them, not ever, if I have anything to say about it. Relief broke across his face, quickly followed by something more careful. Are you sure, Ava? I don't want you making this decision, because you're afraid of disappointing me, either. That's the whole thing we're trying not to do to each other. I'm not deciding this for you. She crossed the kitchen and sat down across from him, taking his hands in both of hers, needing him to understand this before anything else. I sat up on that cliff for 2 hours checking myself for exactly that. I kept asking, is this fear of losing him, or is this actually what I want? And Liam, the answer kept coming back the same every single time. I want the inn. I want to learn how to run it, badly at first, probably, and then eventually well, the way my grandmother did. I want to wake up every morning to that view. I want the Whitfield sisters gossiping about me on the seawall for the next 40 years. I want to build something here that outlasts both of us, the way Eleanor did. She squeezed his hands. And yes, I want you. Not instead of those things, alongside them. As part of the whole life I'm choosing, wide awake, with absolutely nothing left to be afraid of. Ava. Her name came out rough, overwhelmed. I need you to know, whatever you decide about the inn, about Boston, about your career, about any of it, I'm not asking you to give up your whole life for this town. I watched 2 mothers make that mistake for us once already. I won't be the reason you make it for yourself. You're not the reason. She reached up and touched his face, feeling the day's stubble beneath her palm, the small, ordinary intimacy of it, still capable of stealing her breath after all these weeks. I am, this town is, my grandmother is, you're just lucky enough to be standing in the middle of all the things I already loved, before I even knew how much I'd missed them. He laughed, a wet, startled sound, and pulled her into his lap, right there at the kitchen table, blueprints crumpling forgotten beneath them, and kissed her with all the accumulated weight of 5 lost years and 2 months of careful, deliberate choosing. I called Boston today too, Ava admitted, when they finally broke apart. Gave my notice. My boss actually cried, which I did not expect, given how much I complained about that job for 4 straight years. A small laugh. I have 3 weeks left, then I'm home. Really home, not just visiting to settle an estate home. 3 weeks. Liam's hands tightened around her waist, like a man checking that something precious was real. That's the same 3 weeks until the inn reopens. I noticed that too. She smiled against his mouth. I thought it might be a good day to start the rest of my life. Grand opening of the Wayfarer Inn, and the grand opening of whatever this is. Officially, out loud, no more careful, no more waiting to see. I love you, he said, simply, the words no longer new between them, but somehow no less enormous for the repetition. I loved you at 12. I loved you at 19 on that dock. I love you right now, more than either of those versions of me could have understood love was even capable of being. And I am going to love you 3 weeks from now, and 3 years from now, and for every single year after that, for as long as you'll let me. That's a lot of years to promise. Ava's eyes were wet, her heart entirely, gloriously undefended for the first time in half a decade. Are you sure you're up for it? Ava Reynolds. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear with a tenderness that undid her completely. I have been up for it since I was 12 years old. I'm just very, very glad the rest of the world finally caught up. Chapter 16. Grand Opening. The Wayfarer Inn reopened on the last Saturday of August, exactly as promised, with the whole of Harbor's End crowded onto its newly rebuilt porch and spilling out across the lawn. Nora Kim's book table set up by the entrance. The farmer's market flower stall relocated for the day to decorate the porch railings in sea lavender and hydrangea. The Whitfield sisters holding court on the porch swing like visiting royalty. Grace Carter running a small, chaotic table of lemonade that she insisted on calling, to Liam's visible embarrassment, the reunion special. Ava stood at the top of the newly restored porch steps in a pale blue dress, looking out over the crowd of neighbors and friends and near strangers who had all, somehow, become invested in the fate of one old inn on one small hill, and felt her grandmother's presence so strongly in that moment that she had to press a hand briefly to her chest to steady herself. She'd have loved this, Carol said quietly, appearing at her elbow with 2 glasses of the same sparkling lemonade Liam had brought that first evening, months ago now, when everything between them had still been careful and uncertain. The whole town, out here for her inn, for you. I keep thinking she knew, Ava admitted. The will, hiring Liam, without telling either of us who the other one was. Maybe not consciously, but some part of her, I think, was still trying to fix what she'd helped break, right up until the end. Grandmothers have a way of engineering things from beyond the grave. Carol squeezed her hand. I think she'd say her work here is done. Liam found Ava a few minutes later, pulling her gently away from the crowd toward the porch railing, where the harbor spread out below them gold and glittering in the late afternoon light, the same view that had watched over every important moment of their shared history, their first kiss as teenagers, their goodbye 5 years ago, and now this, whatever this was becoming. I have something for the mantle, he said, producing a small brass plaque, newly engraved, that he had apparently been keeping as a surprise even from her. For the great room. I thought it should say something true about this place. Ava took it and read the inscription, her eyes filling before she'd even finished the first line. The Wayfarer Inn, Est, 1962. Some things are worth saving, even when the smart thing to do is let them go. A.R. Liam, her voice broke on his name. This is your grandmother's exact words, from the will. He watched her carefully, checking. I hope that's all right. I thought guests should know the whole philosophy of the place, going forward, what it took to save it, what it's always been about, underneath all the renovation permits and tax credits. It's perfect. She kissed him, brief and sweet, in full view of half the town, and heard, distantly, the unmistakable sound of Dot Whitfield, informing anyone within earshot that this was, in fact, the moment she had been waiting all summer to witness. Mayor Ferris took the porch steps a few minutes later to formally declare the Wayfarer Inn reopened, delivering a speech that ran considerably longer than anyone had expected and touched, more than once, on the particular resilience of a town that had watched two of its own find their way home. When she finished, the crowd cheered, and someone, later revealed to be Grace, entirely unrepentant, set off a small cascade of confetti that got into the punch bowl and stayed there for the rest of the afternoon. As the sun began its slow descent toward the water, gilding the whole rebuilt porch in the same gold light that had watched Ava and Liam's original goodbye 5 years before, Ava found herself standing at the exact spot where they had once stood together as children, dreaming up a future neither of them had known, back then, how nearly they would lose. Same spot, Liam said quietly, coming to stand beside her, reading her mind the way he always had. Same spot. She leaned into him, watching the whole town celebrate below them, the inn glowing warm and welcoming behind, restored down to its very bones. Different ending though. Better ending, he corrected gently, and kissed the top of her head as the sun sank low and gold over Harbour's End, and the Wayfarer Inn, saved and reopened and full of light, stood watching over both of them, the way it always had, the way, Ava suspected, it always would. Chapter 17. Autumn. The town settled into autumn slowly, the way coastal towns do, tourist crowds thinning into a quieter, more intimate season of regulars and locals, and Ava found herself, 3 months into running the Wayfarer Inn full-time, more thoroughly, unexpectedly happy than she had been in the whole of her adult life. She was not, she readily admitted to anyone who asked, naturally gifted at innkeeping. She had burned the first 2 batches of the inn's famous blueberry scones, before Nora Kim finally intervened with her grandmother's actual handwritten recipe, discovered pressed into the same poetry book that had once held Ava's unmailed letters. She had double-booked a wedding party and a book club retreat for the same October weekend before Carol, laughing so hard she nearly dropped the reservation ledger, gently walked her through an actual booking system. She had, on more than one occasion, gotten so absorbed in conversation with Liam on the porch that she had entirely forgotten a guest checking in was standing patiently at the front desk. But she was learning, the way her grandmother had once learned, one imperfect season at a time, and the inn itself seemed to be thriving under her uncertain, deeply loving stewardship, fully booked most weekends through the fall, a growing waiting list for the following summer, a write-up in a regional travel magazine that called it, with more accuracy than the writer probably knew, a place restored not just in wood and paint, but in spirit. Liam had scaled back his Portland office to spend most of his time in Harbour's End, taking on smaller local restoration projects while he and Ava built, slowly and deliberately, the life they had once only sketched on a diner placemat. He kept the Point House, though Ava's belongings had migrated there so gradually and completely over the autumn that neither of them had bothered to formally discuss the logistics of it. It had simply happened, the way the truest things in their relationship always seemed to, quietly and without ceremony, until one day, it was simply true. On a crisp evening in late October, the two of them climbed to the inn's rebuilt Widow's Walk together, for the first time since its reconstruction. The whole coastline spread out below them in the fading autumn light, the harbor dotted with the last few boats of the season making their way home. "It's solid," Liam said, testing the railing with obvious professional satisfaction. "Should be, anyway. I checked those joists myself about 6 times. I trust you." Ava leaned into the railing beside him, watching the light change over the water. This was the part of the house I dreamed about the most. You know, when I was in Boston. Not the porch, not even my grandmother's kitchen. This, up here, where you could see everything coming and going. Watching for me, he said it softly, remembering the promise from that long-ago placemat drawing. Watching for home, she corrected gently, then reconsidered, which turned out to be the same thing, in the end. He was quiet for a long moment, watching the last boat round the breakwater below them. And when he spoke again, his voice had taken on a careful, deliberate quality that made Ava's heart begin, instinctively, to quicken. "I've been thinking about spring," he said. "About the inn's 1-year anniversary of reopening. About the Widow's Walk, actually, specifically." He turned to face her fully. "I don't want to rush you, Ava. I meant that, back at the beginning of the summer, and I still mean it now. But I also don't want to keep pretending I don't already know exactly what I want the rest of my life to look like. I've known since I was 12 years old, if I'm being completely honest. I just needed the universe, apparently, and 2 meddling mothers, and 5 miserable years, to finally get out of the way, and let me actually build it." Liam. Her breath had gone shallow, her heart hammering against her ribs. "I'm not asking yet." He smiled, a little unsteady, achingly sincere. "I promise, when I ask, you'll know it's happening. I'm not subtle, remember, you told me that yourself. I just wanted you to know it's coming. That this, the inn, this town, you and me on this widow's walk with the whole coastline spread out in front of us, this is the life I'm building toward. On purpose. With my eyes wide open. I wanted to say that out loud, standing exactly where I first told you I wanted to build you a house, 20 years after I meant it, and finally understood what it would cost, and what it would be worth, to actually make it real." Ava reached for his hand, lacing her fingers through his the way she had on a different dock, a different goodbye, half a lifetime ago, and felt, standing on the rebuilt widow's walk of her grandmother's inn, with the whole autumn evening glowing gold around them, that she had never in her life been more certain of anything. "I'll be waiting," she said, echoing a promise neither of them had ever quite managed to keep the first time, and meant, with her whole healed and hopeful heart, to keep it this time, for as long as it took. Chapter 18. The Question. Winter came gently to Harbor's End that year, the inn cocooned in its first quiet season under Ava's care, the 2 of them settling into the easy, unremarkable rhythms of a life fully chosen. Sunday dinners with Carol, Friday evenings at the Blue Anchor, long walks along the cliffside trail that had become, without either of them planning it, entirely their own. It happened, in the end, in April, on the 1-year anniversary of the inn's reopening, though Ava did not know that was the significance of the date until much later, distracted as she was by the small, curious fact that Liam had asked her to close the inn early and meet him on the Widow's Walk just before sunset, alone, no explanation offered beyond a smile she should have recognized as entirely too deliberate to be casual. She climbed the ladder to find the Widow's Walk strung with small white lights, the whole coastline spread out beneath a sky, just beginning to turn the particular molten gold that Harbor's End seemed to specialize in, and Liam waiting for her at the railing in the same spot where he had promised, 6 months earlier, that this moment was coming. "You're not subtle," she reminded him, her voice already unsteady, her whole body understanding what was happening before her mind had quite caught up. "Never claimed to be." He crossed the small platform and took both her hands, and Ava watched, through eyes already blurring with tears, as he lowered himself onto one knee on the widow's walk of the inn they had rebuilt together, board by board, truth by hard-won truth. "Ava Reynolds, I have loved you since I was 12 years old, and had absolutely no idea what that word was even supposed to mean. I loved you at 19, on a dock, saying goodbye and calling it not yet. Because neither of us could bear to call it anything more final. I loved you across 5 years of silence I didn't understand, and shouldn't have accepted so easily. And I love you now, completely, with my eyes wide open, knowing exactly what it cost to lose you, and exactly what it's worth to choose you, every single day, for the rest of my life." He produced a ring, simple, elegant, a small sapphire the color of the water at dusk, and Ava's hands were shaking too hard to be entirely steady as he slid it, gently, onto her finger. "Will you marry me?" he asked, his own voice breaking at last. 5 years and a whole restored inn's worth of feeling finally arriving all at once. "Will you let me build the rest of that house on the placemat with you? The whole life, not just the porch and the widow's walk. I want all of it, Ava. I want to grow old with you exactly here, watching this same view, for the next 60 years. The word arrived without hesitation, without a single flicker of the fear that had once, briefly, held her back from every good thing she deserved. "Yes, Liam, 1,000 times yes. I don't want to wait another day to start the rest of this." He rose and kissed her, there on the widow's walk under the darkening April sky, the small white lights catching the tears on both their faces, and somewhere below them, unbeknownst to either, the entire town of Harbor's End, alerted by an entirely unrepentant Grace Carter, who had spent the last hour casually stationing half the town on the inn's front lawn, erupted into cheers that carried clear up to the widow's walk, startling them both into breathless, disbelieving laughter. "Did you?" Ava peered over the railing to find the front lawn crowded with familiar faces. Carol crying openly, the Whitfield sisters embracing with theatrical triumph. Nora Kim already, apparently, taking bets on the wedding date. "I may have mentioned my plans to a few people." Liam's ears had gone predictably red. "In my defense, Grace found out on her own, and I could not, in good conscience, have kept it from Dot and Millicent. They'd have never forgiven either of us. The whole town is here. The whole town has been waiting for this since we were 17 years old." He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers, the two of them wrapped together on the widow's walk, while the cheers rose up from below, and the last of the sunset burned gold and endless over Harbor's End. "I figured they'd earned the chance to watch it happen." You have just listened to Forever Starts with Goodbye, a heartfelt story of love, loss, forgiveness, and second chances. Ava and Liam's journey reminds us that silence can separate two hearts, but truth has a way of bringing them home again. Through the rebuilding of the Wayfarer Inn, they also rebuild what time, fear, and misunderstanding nearly destroyed. Thank you for spending this time in Harbor's End. If you enjoyed this audiobook, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more romance stories, full audiobook readings, and heartfelt fiction.